Hello everyone, this is Jeevakan. In today's video, we'll look at why Reliance has fallen 8% and whether we need to look at this as a buying opportunity or a selling opportunity. And we'll analyze the overall trend of the market as well in this video. So let's get right into the video. Reliance Industries has been under the radar for a while. I mean, like it's always been under the radar. But in the last 1 week, many news have been floating around. Especially one important news is that Mukesh Ambani resigned from the board of Reliance Jio Infocom, which is a subsidiary of Reliance Industries, and handed it over to his eldest son Akash Ambani. This news came on 27th of June, and immediately after the next 2 or 3 days, which is on July 1, the government has imposed taxes on export of petrol, fuel, jet fuel shipped overseas by Indian firms. And this has created a huge impact on oil stocks. Especially Reliance Industries has fallen more than 8% and ONGC also has fallen more than 13%. The main question is that whether we need to look at this fall as a buying opportunity or a selling opportunity, and whether we need to keep ourselves away from the oil stocks or what we need to do. When it comes to Reliance Industries, I personally accumulated few quantities of Reliance Industries at 2380 to 2400 levels because I believe that Reliance is well diversified into different areas, and this fall should be considered as a knee-jerk reaction and fresh buy positions will be initiated in the next few weeks. So I personally accumulated somewhere around 100 or 200 quantities at 2400 levels and will be accumulating if it falls below 2200 or 2300 as well. So going forward, we'll analyze Reliance chart as well as Nifty chart to determine the overall trend of the market. So let's look at the charts right now.
We are looking at Reliance charts right now. So we can clearly see that Reliance is sitting at an important trend line support, and the next important support is here. So these are the two important support trend lines. So I accumulated around this trend line around 2400, and I'll be accumulating more around 2200 as well in the next support. For long-term investments, 2400 is a very good buying range, and if you are trying to hold for 3 or 4 years, this is a very good bet. And one more important reason to consider this as an important support is this can even be considered as a double bottom, and the likeliness of the market bottoming out from here is pretty high. So I bought somewhere around 2380 to 2400 levels for long-term investments, considering it will give handsome returns in the next 2 or 3 years. And when it comes to Nifty has been moving within this trend line for a while. And we are sitting exactly at the bottom of the trend line, and we should probably be touching the upper trend line levels of 17,600 in the next month or even August or September, if there are no bad news in the upcoming weeks. When it comes to taking positions, I'm not taking any positions anytime soon until 16,300 or 400 is broken on the upside due to two important reasons. First reason being this trend line, because if this trend line is respected, the market will hit this resistance and will fall further and will likely trade within this channel. So I'll wait for this trend line to get broken decisively. Second is gap filling. So what is gap filling? Whenever there is a huge gap up or gap down in markets, the gaps will 70% of the time gets filled. So if we look at the charts here for the last 5 months, we'll start from 22nd February. Here there was a huge gap down, right? So this huge gap down got filled in the next 2 or 3 days. So likewise, whenever there is a huge gap up or gap down, here there was a huge gap down on 19th April. This huge gap down also got filled here. In the same way, the huge gap down around 5th May also got filled in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So if we go by that pattern, we had a huge gap down on 13th June. So the likeliness of the gap being filled in the next 1 or 2 weeks is really high, and the market is going to 16,200 is evident. But this might be as a trap, because when the market reaches 16,200, many people will go long, and the actual reason is the gap might get filled and the market will resume its downtrend and it will fall further. So it's better to wait until 16,200 or 300 or even 400 is broken on the upside and then take fresh positions if you are thinking to hold for the short term. Because what will happen is this gap will get filled until July 13th, and after that the market might gap down, and then most of the long players will get trapped in this market. So this is what will usually happen. So it's better to wait until July 13th or until 16,400 is broken and then take fresh positions. So finally, let's compare price action for the last 3 days for Nifty and Reliance and see how the institution people have managed their funds. On 29th and 30th of June, Nifty was really weak and all the blue chip stocks were weak. But Reliance moved 3%, which lifted the market sentiment. But on July 1, Reliance crashed due to the oil news which came, due to the government imposing taxes on petrol and diesel. but there was aggressive buying in other blue chip stocks like ITC and Bajaj Finance and many other stocks, which helped Nifty to close flat. So the point I'm making here is that there is concentrated buying on different days on different sectors, which is helping the market to not fall further, which is good for the markets. And the VIX also crashed 3%, and FIIs reducing their sell figures is also a good sign for the markets. But this is the time to stay put, because 15,000 or even 17,000 is possible from here on, because this is the news based market. Based on the news, the markets are moving, so it's better to wait until all the news gets subsided and then trade accordingly.
So this is the overall condition of the market. It's better to keep away from the market for a while. It's better to not trade than to get ourselves into some uncomfortable situations. So I personally have very little positions such as intraday positions nowadays, because I'm keeping myself away from the market, not to keep myself away from the volatility. Because I'm waiting for two things. One is Nifty to cross above 16,300 or 400, and the another important news is which is inflation data, which is going to come on July 13th, 2022. So which is very, very important. If the inflation data is pretty bad, the market might fall further, and if the inflation data is pretty decent, the market will stabilize and it will move on the upside as well. And one more important thing is that Jerome Powell, who is the chairman of the Federal Reserve, has made an important statement that inflation can be kept under control, but recession is a possibility. This is a big statement, and even after getting this news, the markets were quite stable. So this is a positive news for the market, and even after getting a bad news, we are still stabilizing and the market is consolidating as well. So going forward, I believe that the market might be going to somewhere around 16,800 or even 17,600. So I'll be selling my weaker stocks at 16,800, and I'll be trying to revamp my portfolio once Nifty reaches 17,600, and I'll be moving most of my funds to safer stocks like some of the blue chip stocks. So this is what I'm planning right now. So hope you'll find this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching the video. Signing off until next time. Cheers.